All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back today. We're doing a true crime today. We're going to be talking about serial killers with an expert, one of the friend of the show and my co-host on weekends, Matthew Brockmeyer from Murder Coaster Podcast. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing all right. Thank you very much.
Well, it's good to have you. You know, we did a live stream on Saturday. We talked about all these different serial killers, and I thought, let's talk about. Let's talk about the latest and greatest in serial killers. And of course, we have the Gilgo Beach, the golden age of serial killers, right? The Gilgo Beach serial killer. This guy is from, I guess, Long Island, killing a bunch of people. Yes. I don't know what's going on. So can you tell me what's going on with this guy?
Rex Heuermann, I believe he's, 59 years old? So there was all these... It's a crazy story in a lot of ways. It all began with this woman, Shannon Gilbert, who was a sex worker. And she started running down the street, banging on people's doors, saying, help me, help me. He's trying to kill me. He's trying to kill me. And so they began to search for her there on Long Island. And when they did, they ended up finding 11 bodies on Long Island. And the funny thing is, she has not been traced back to this Rex Heuermann guy. Authorities have her they officially listed her as drowning, saying she panicked and ran into the water there on Long Island. But then her mother, I believe this is true, her mother demanded that they do another autopsy, and that autopsy found that she had in fact been strangled to death. But they believe that there's possibly even up to 3 serial killers at work dumping bodies in this area. Another guy was John Bittroff, who was also linked to some of these women. But right now, 4 of the 11 bodies have been attributed. And I would just want to say real quick, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. So when we talk about Rex and John and all this, they're presumed innocent until they're proven guilty. We're just talking about the case. So they linked him back to 4 of these bodies. This Rex Heuermann, he is a longtime Long Island native. He's actually living in the house where he grew up. His father was a aeronautical engineer. And they had this house, and his father died when he was pretty young. I believe it was 10 years old. And he grew up in this house, bought the house, and let it fall into a complete state of disrepair. It's so fucked up that the neighbors wouldn't let their children trick or treat there. And reportedly, when one of the kids did trick or treat there and got candy, the parents made them throw the candy away afterwards. But he's an architect, and he's a fancy pants with an office in Manhattan. And so a lot of people speculate, why did he let this house fall into such a state of disrepair if he's an architect?
Yeah. So what's the deal with his family, too? He's obviously married. He's got kids. What's the story there?
Yeah. Well, he's been married twice. He's got some adult children. I don't really know. He's a successful businessman. Here's something that's spooky. He's got like a large piece of land in South Carolina. And so investigators are obviously worried that he could be at work down there, and he would have a lot of places to dispose of the body with this large ranch or whatever it is. And he also has a property in Las Vegas. And he is an avid customer of sex workers. Obviously in Las Vegas or Nevada area, sex work is legal even, and it's very well known for its sex work. So hopefully that there is no cases there, but investigators are looking into that. So he was caught because they were able to, a new task force was formed, included with the FBI, and they were able to ascertain that a certain pickup truck had been at one of the scenes, and they found that he owned one of these pickup trucks. And so he got sloppy. He started getting sloppy. So he had all these burner phones, like tons of them, like, I don't know, maybe 5, I think I heard 5 separate burner phones, and that he would do searches on, and he would actually call the victims' families up. He would call the parents and like say terrible things. He called the one person's, and he was Googling victims' children and trying to find the victims' children's addresses. But he got sloppy and started calling his burner phones to check the messages from his real phone, which tied them all together. It's really, why have a burner phone if you're going to use your real phone? I don't know if he was just cocky, self-assured, what exactly was going on there, but that really tripped him up. And then to show how much DNA evidence has improved over the years, they found one single solitary hair on a piece of burlap that was used to cover one of the bodies, and they were able to get DNA from it. I remember when you couldn't get DNA from hair, so and just one follicle of hair, one piece of hair, and they went and he ate a pizza and threw the box away, and they took the crust and were able to link the hair and the crust up, and it was a match. So as I said, he is innocent until proven guilty, but I mean, this evidence is truly damning. You have DNA evidence, you have these burner phones, they have him tied to everything, including like where his office was in Manhattan was where the calls from the burners. Oh, and he had been using one of the victims' phones itself to call family members, and those pinged right outside his office. And he's looking pretty caught.
Looking pretty guilty. So what was his people that he was going? Every serial killer has a certain demographic of people that they're going after. What was his? Well, what kind of people was he killing?
Short
supposedly?
Sex workers. Several of his victims were shorter than 5 foot. This guy is 6'7", almost 300 pounds. Photographs of him being arrested, he is towering over the cops. The tallest cop there comes up to his shoulder. Some of the cops only come up to his chest. This man is huge. And when I say huge, not just tall, he is wide. He has got his shoulders, his neck, his fucking face, his head itself looks like some kind of like just monstrous thing. I mean, he's a very terrifying, in my opinion, looking person. Just the brute strength that he must have. And as I said, several of his victims were only 4'11", which is just terrifying.
Maybe he's a fan of Randy Newman. He thinks short people got no reason to live. No, but crude jokes aside, I mean, what do you think? How does this compare to other serial killers that have existed in this area? But the psychology of him in general, what do you think he's doing this for?
People still debate about exactly why serial killers do what they do. Obviously, somewhere in his life, or in your sexually sadistic serial killer's life, they've intertwined sex and death. Usually like have resentment towards their parents, their mother. A lot of times they're acting out, or even an ex-partner. A lot of it's a mystery. Most of them have received severe head injuries, which severely affects their impulse control. But that doesn't necessarily explain why they have these dark, it's a fantasy life. They all live these fantasy lives, and then they want to make this fantasy life a reality. And you can see his fantasy life at work. He was an avid watcher of torture porn and rape pornography. And when the investigators were searching his house, they found a secret locked room in his basement. And in it, they found, I think, over 300 guns. And there was also a doll. And it's a life-size child doll in a handmade, almost like a glass coffin. Apparently it's a traditionally Icelandic doll, but it's just very creepy the way it's, and he was a carpenter maker. So it's not known yet whether he made this glass case or not, but it's speculated that he may have made this like glass coffin for this doll. And on the graves of several of the victims, dolls appeared, and the dolls were so creepy that the victims' relatives took the dolls and brought them to authorities and was like, we don't know who brought this here. And it's very scary. I actually have a list. I was able to ascertain the list of some of his of his Google searches if you want to hear them. They're very disturbing. Okay, well, this is disturbing stuff, all right?
Go ahead.
So, mistress, Long Island. Mature escorts, Manhattan. Girl begging for rape, porn. Teen girl begging for rape, porn. Pretty girl with bruised face, porn. Tortured redhead, porn. And then he's also apparently a pedophile. 10-year-old schoolgirl. Henta, plump pussy lips, cut off, porn. Skinny redhead, tied up, porn. Short fat girl, and he likes short girls. And short fat girl, tied up, porn. Tied up and raped, porn. Asian twink, tied up, porn. Now that's an interesting one, Asian twink, because one of the unknown victims was actually, they believe, he was in a dress. It was a man, but he was a very effeminate man, and he was in a dress, and they believe that he could possibly have been a transsexual sex worker, so that he would say Asian twink. I don't know. It's that. Does that tie him to that other case? And again, he hasn't even been accused of that one. He's only been accused of a couple of these 11 bodies, 11 victims that were found there. So it's not uncommon for serial killers to all be working in the same place and dumping in the same place. On Murder Coaster, we just covered the freeway killers, who were 3 men in the late 70s and early 80s that were all targeting the same victims in the same places and dumping the bodies in the same places. And the police all thought it was like either one person for a while, but it was actually 3 separate people who had no ties to each other. And
killing women goes all the way back to,
well, these were men. They were killing men. They were all gay men, 3 gay
really?
men.
But it's so much is sexual. It goes all the way back to Jack the Ripper and stuff.
Yeah, and before that, Jack the Ripper is a classic example of your classic serial killer. He's become romanticized just because of Victorian England and the fog and the knives, and anything Victorian England is very like spooky and fun and cool. Yeah. But he's not much different than the Green River Killer. Cum shot crying, girl hogtied and tortured, 10-year-old blonde-haired girl. Chubby 10-year-old girl, black girl 10 years old, girl with face beat up, chubby 10-year-old girl crying, 13-year-olds. I mean, I don't know. And then some of the other ones that he added and that he looked up are, why could law enforcement not trace the calls made by the Long Island serial killer? What an interesting thing to fucking Google, huh? Why hasn't the Long Island serial killer been caught? And then there's just like a whole list of Long Island serial killer phone call, Long Island serial killer update, FBI active serial killers, So those are some of his Google searches.
Now there was
very disturbing.
Was there a film about him made, or about this Long Island serial killer?
Now there was a documentary film made about the Long Island serial killer. It was made by the same guy who made Murder Mountain. And it really documents what they had known at the time. I think that documentary was made in 2016, so obviously it has nothing to do with him. But I remember one of the things that people were speculating was that it was the mafia, and it was a mafia dumping ground, and they were sex workers that had been either not paying the mafia like their cut, or had learned something they shouldn't have learned, something like that. I mean, that was just speculation at the time. Obviously, this man is definitely, he's accused of several of these and linked very close to them. But it doesn't look like he did all of them. So the first person who was killed in that area was Karen Vergata. And she was completely dismembered. Her head was missing, her hands were missing, and her head was later found in a different area. And then there was an unknown woman that's just known as Peaches because of the tattoo she had. And this is terrible. Her toddler child as well. And Peaches was also dismembered. But it's important. And these are the very first of the killings. So Rex has been accused of the very last of the killings, and I think it's important to point out that none of his victims were dismembered. So it does seem to point to two separate serial killers, or maybe possibly three. That's what some people think. It's interesting that they would all be in this small area, but I mean, just the way the world works.
Is there?
And as I mentioned,
Are there certain
this guy John Bitroff, who's a convicted killer? He's a convicted killer. Is tied to some of these.
Are there certain geographies that give birth to serial killers? Just being in a certain area, like Long Island or Chicago, or is there a correlation there? Sometimes
it does appear so, doesn't it? I mean, if you look at California, I mean, like it's weird. Santa Cruz had 3 serial killers going at one time. In Los Angeles, there were 20 serial killers. Los Angeles was called the serial killer capital of the world. But it's probably a lot to do with population density, maybe socioeconomic conditions, social conditions such as the availability of sex workers. Because a lot of these earlier serial killers, including this guy Rex here, they're killing sex workers. And so obviously if you live in an area where there's no sex workers, you know what I mean? They're not going to end up dead.
Is there any correlation between, bored suburbanites or like suburban values and then this kind of reaction? Because it seems like a lot of them come from these really nice white picket fence style places.
I don't know if the white picket fence thing is necessarily true. A lot of these people come from horrible. I mean, some of them do. Don't get me wrong. They seem to come from every culture, every race, every socioeconomic thing. They're straight, they're gay, they're poor, they're rich. What really seems to the only thing is they're almost always men. There are women serial killers, but most of them are doing it for financial reasons. Although we do see occasionally sexually sadistic women serial killers.
Can you name one?
Oh yeah, sure. We just recently had Shabusiness. She's actually not a serial killer. She only killed one person, but she definitely would have been a serial killer if she hadn't been caught, I believe. And she was a necrophile. She chopped up her boyfriend, and this just happened fairly recently. And she says that she had sex with the dead body for hours, and she accidentally left his head in a bucket in his parents' basement, and they found it. And she was famous because she was in court, and her lawyer did something she didn't like, and she fucking jumped on him and started wailing, beating up her lawyer in court, which is there's video footage of that. It's some wild stuff. And of course, Karla Homolka, of the Ken and Barbie killers. She was definitely a sexually depraved killer. And Carol Bundy of the Sunset Strip killers was also a necrophile and enjoyed having sex with dead bodies with her boyfriend. And they would troll Sunset Strip in Los Angeles in 1980, picking up sex workers and killing them, and having sex with the bodies. Yeah,
it's unfortunate.
And of course, Rosemary West. Do you know about her?
No.
I mean, she takes the cake. Fred and Rosemary West were in England, and they had a criminal career that it just went on for like decades, man. And they killed. It's just a rabbit hole I'm not going to even get into right now. So but they're definitely sexually, deviant serial killers.
So how long has the Long Island serial killer supposedly been on the lam doing his thing?
Well, like I said, they don't believe that these first victims were murdered by this guy Rex Heuermann. Like I said, they had been, but let's see here. The first victims were found or were murdered. I mean, and it goes back into the 90s, I believe. Can't forget it. Where is this? I think wasn't it 90? 1996. Yes, 1996. So the first one goes back to 1996, which is a long time ago.
Interesting. And they actually have CCTV footage of him going into a burner phone store to get a burner phone.
That's correct. The mobile, what is it? Mobile, whatever they call it.
Yeah. So he also was a hunter. I mean, how often do you see correlations between serial killers that love to, hunt big game or ducks or something, and also, drift over into people?
That's an excellent question. I don't know of any statistics or studies, but I can say just offhand that you do see it quite often. I mean, we just covered, like we were talking about the freeway killers, Patrick Kearney. He was an avid hunter. His father took him hunting, and his father also taught him how to kill livestock and showed him how when you kill, they raised pigs. And he says, when you kill a pig, you take a 22 pistol, you put it behind its ear and you shoot it. And because the 22 is a lower caliber, it'll enter the head and go into the brain and kill the animal. But when it hits the other side of the skull, it's just going to bounce around and not exit. And exit wounds are what are the most bloody. And so if you just shoot it behind the head with a 22, there's not going to be an exit wound and you're going to have very little mess. It's going to be a clean entrance wound that's not going to bleed very much, and there'll be no exit wound. And that's how they killed pigs on this little farm that they had. And that's how he killed all of his victims. He would pick up a male sex worker or a hitchhiker, or it's like a hippie hitchhiker sometimes, just completely it was like the late 60s and 70s. And as he was driving, was able to take the gun, put it up, and shoot them in the head and not even swerve. And they wouldn't even notice. They'd be like looking out the window at something. He would look over, see they were distracted, raise the gun up, bam, shoot them in the head, no exit wound, and they'd be instantly dead. He didn't like to torture his victims or anything. He wanted them dead, and then he was a necrophile.
Okay. So yeah, not to create a big mess.
Right.
Relatively easy way to get a dead body that you can play with or whatever. Sick stuff. So
yes,
Long Island, we were talking about areas and stuff. Tell me some more people that came from the Manhattan area or I forget where he's from, Nassau County?
Yeah, Long Island. He's from Long Island, but he worked in Manhattan.
Are there other famous serial killers from this area?
Well, there was the torso killer. You know about him, and he frequented 42nd Street, and he worked there. Netflix has an amazing documentary on him. That is it's a documentary. Geez, I can't even remember the name of it. I think it might be called The Torso Killer. But it's a documentary that looks at the culture of 42nd Street there, Times Square. And I'm sure you're familiar with that. Everything from like grindhouse cinema to the peep shows to live sex acts to actual just like sex clubs where, what do they call them? You could go in there and
peep show.
There was the peep shows and all that, but I'm talking swingers clubs, with like hot tubs and swimming pools and like, bad boy back rooms or whatever and shit. And that whole culture, that's completely erased now. If you go to Times Square now, of course, it's all like Walt Disney and family orientated and tourist and happy. Whereas, back in the late 70s and early 80s, it was like a sleaze fest. A lot of people nostalgic for that. But he worked there and he killed. I can't remember all the details, but it's a very fascinating documentary because they went to him in prison and he has been quiet and not admitted to anything and not said anything. And they got him to open up and they got him to talk. And he's an old man now, long white beard. And just seeing him finally crack and talk after all these many years, decades and decades, it was really fascinating. I highly recommend that documentary.
So they got the pizza crust from, I think, his garbage can and stuff, but then they also matched his wife's hair. Is that right? with the?
Yes, that is absolutely correct. But they believe that that is just, from living with his wife. They don't believe that she had anything to do with these murders at all. And as a matter of fact, on each of these, when each of these crimes was committed, his wife was out of town.
Interesting.
Yes. So most likely he would wait for his wife to go out of town and then murder someone, which I've seen you see with other serial killers as well.
Yeah. I mean, there are examples, I suppose, of husband and wife killers, right?
Well, I just mentioned Fred and Rosemary West.
Right.
And of course the Ken and Barbie killers. Yeah.
Yeah. Natural born killer style. So what's going to happen next in the case? Can we anticipate? What's your prediction in this? Do you think he did it?
My personal belief, and as I said before, everyone's innocent, presumed innocent. But hell yeah, dude. I mean, come on, DNA. All these burner phones.
Yeah.
Especially the burner phones and like his disgusting internet searches and
yeah.
But sadly, some of my internet searches do link up. I have like recently, even in the past like day or two, been like typing in Long Island serial killer over and over as he was. But
well, the FBI's got a file on you too, Maddie.
Well, I'm a horror writer, so I'm sure they've had one on me for a while.
Yeah.
As soon as the internet came out, I was there like, exactly how much blood is in a human body and how long would it take to take out?
How do I decompose a body? Right. Yeah, it's a slippery slope. Well, we're looking forward to see. We're going to get an update on Heuermann, but also you're going to come back next week and you're going to do another serial killer. Any idea who you want to profile next week?
No, I don't. We could try to keep it more modern and relevant, and we could maybe talk about that Woman Shop Business for a second if you wanted.
Yeah. That sounds pretty interesting. We should be progressive and, do male and female and stuff like that. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, look, we'll let you go now. I want to thank Matthew Brockmeyer, always a wonderful human being. Matthew Brockmeyer, Murder Coaster podcast. He's going to be back again, and we're going to be talking about some of the most morose and morbid things that human beings can do. Anything you want to add before we go?
Yeah, you can find me at www.murdercoasterpodcast.com and send me an email if you want at murdercoasterpodcast@gmail.com. And thanks so much for having me, Chris, and thanks to everyone for listening.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you next week with more f***ed up news. Ciao.
Bye.